Hi everyone, this session is about Global Talent Visa and will be conducted by Mr. Vaibhav Patel. Mr. Vaibhav is the Director of Aussizz Group Sydney and a registered migration agent, one of the most established migration agents in Sydney area. Mr. Vaibhav is expert in Global Talent Visa, general skill migration visas and handling skill assessment requirements for a broad spectrum of occupations. Having helped countless migrants to settle in Australia, Mr. Vaibhav is a trailblazer in immigration consulting. This session is being recorded. If time permits, we will take a few questions at the end of the session. But if you need your questions answered in a personalized way, please tune into our dedicated Q&A session and at the end of today at from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Now I'll hand it over to Mr. Vaibhav to start with the session.
Thank you, Agam, for helping me with this beginning. Hi, everyone. My name is Vaibhav, as Agam introduced. So today we are going to talk about a global talent visa. I'm going to explain everything in detail, and probably, if we have some time, if the time permits, we will also try and answer your questions too. Now, with regards to the global talent visa, it's a fast track pathway and streamlined pathway for professionals who are highly talented. So if you are considering yourself to be a highly talented person, you have, let's say, international records of achievements and everything, this program would be the best for you. Australia is definitely after the best and brightest global talent. So that means they are looking for highly talented people from all around the world in the 10 future focus sectors. Now, what are these sectors? These sectors falls under resources, circular economy, agriculture, agri-food and agricultural technology, energy, digital technology, infrastructure and tourism, health industries, financial services and fintech, defense, advanced manufacturing and space and education. So if you are from these industries, you can go through the pathway, which is an expression of interest through the Global Talent Program. But if you're not from these industries, but you're still highly talented person, like you have a supernatural skills, or let's say not a supernatural skills, but you have a very good talent and you have, like, for example, have patent under your names, or you're a big cricketer, or you are a big football player and internationally, then you can also apply for a global talent program through the other pathway, which is a direct global talent visa. So today we are going to focus on specifically global talent independent program. So the process is that you have to first identify yourself to be in these industries. If you are from these target sectors, then only we can go ahead and apply for the global talent program. Otherwise, you have to go through the global talent visa if you still consider yourself to be a highly talented person. Now, under this pathway as well, there are two sub pathways. Number one is the graduate pathway. So this is for the graduates who have completed PhD in Australia or overseas. Doesn't have to be in Australia itself, or you're completing your PhD in upcoming 6 months. So either way is fine. But not only completing the PhD will qualify you for a global talent program. So if you are just looking, if you're completing the PhD, but you haven't really have good number of thesis or research paper published, or you don't have any publications, then your case becomes a bit weaker. So obviously, the more exposure you have nationally and internationally, and more of research papers you have published, as well as thesis you worked on, projects you have worked on during your PhD, all those activities would count towards qualifying for a global talent independent program. Now, the other pathway is for professionals who are working in these sectors already. Like, for example, if you're working in manufacturing, for example, you're working in IT, where you sit on the top notch of your, in your industry. So this is not for people who are working in, let's say, for example, somebody has 20 years of experience in IT, but they have not reached on top of their management line in the company. Then they won't really fit in. Like, for example, people working in a multinational company, but they are very well experienced, but they are just in a mid-level professional, then they won't fit in. But let's say you are a vice president or assistant to director, or you are in top management positions in the org chart of your company, then that means you're a highly talented person. That's why you are sitting on the top in your organization, right? So professionals with extensive work experience, international work records, like, you can show that projects that you worked on internationally and everything. That can also show that you are you're highly skilled professional working in these sectors. Now, how do you prove your talent? So the next part is proving your talent in the application. So when you apply for your expression of interest, you have to consider a few criteria. Now, these are the criteria. Number one is a talent. Now you have to provide an evidence that you're a highly talented person. How do we do that? Obviously, each case is different. Now, there is no set of fixed documentation or fixed checklist that you can follow. Depending on individual profile and depending on individual's circumstances, we have to determine what sort of documents you can provide. But the examples that we can provide is, let's say, individuals with an internationally recognized records of exceptional and outstanding achievements. Now, internationally recognized records of achievement would be, let's say, if you have got some awards, you participated in some competition, or you have, let's say, some you have patents under your name, or you've worked on some important international projects. Those are the evidences that you can show that you're internationally recognized. Even invitations to come and speak about the topic that you are on the topic specifically to your industry, then that is also one of the evidence that you are recognized internationally. So, for example, if you're in XYZ country and you've been invited by, let's say, some other country or university from around the world, anywhere, and you're going and speaking about that your industry or your topic that you're working in, or you've graduated in with the PhD degree, then that can count towards your international achievements or international recognitions. Leaders in the respective sectors. So if you're working in a senior position, as I mentioned before, so let's say, for example, a vice president in the banks, or a director or assistant directors, or a general manager, corporate service managers, heads of the big companies as well, they can also qualify for this program. So if you are working in top management, then definitely you have a very good chances to qualify for a global talent program. Working at a highly competitive international organization. So again, not only your position, let's say you are working as a director or assistant director, or an operational manager, or general manager, but the company's size is not that big. Then again, yes, you're in senior position, but your company is not well known. So you should be working in the organization that is also recognized nationally or internationally. And now the next part is, if you worked on you've completed international projects or research work and demonstrated the impact of those projects or work on the wider community in this particular sector. So people, I can give an example that one of my clients was working in fintech, and he was working on two major technologies that are used by most of the banks in all over the world actually. And he worked internationally in different countries with different banks, which are again international banks. So, and he worked on those projects which changed the way the banks used to operate. So definitely those are the work that you can count. Like we had a medical technology guy who was working in enhancing medical technological devices, which are used by the medical professionals for on their day-to-day lifetime or day-to-day work to assist patients in recovering from their medical conditions. But so our client was working in the medical technology where he was working on enhancing those technologies so that it can help the medical professionals in treating their patients in better way and more efficient way. So those are the evidences that you can provide. Now we can include everything in your submission with all the evidences and everything as to prove that you are a talented person. Now, if you're working in the industry already, then you can show that you are earning 153,600 or more by working in this field. Then you don't have to worry much. Obviously, this is one part. Your talent is still looked at, so you have to qualify for each part of this criteria. So if you are earning 153,600, but you're not in top management, then still you do not qualify for the Global Talent Independent Program. They might not approve your invitation. So the only salary doesn't really qualify you to apply for the Global Talent Program. But yes, the salary is very important as well. At the same time, the talent is very important. Now you need to show that you're earning 153,600, which is high income threshold. Each year, the Department of Home Affairs looks at the ATO's high income threshold and then determines the fund requirement for an income. Last year, it was 148,000, if I'm not wrong. Now this year is 153,600. Now maybe from tomorrow onwards, they might even change it and bring some other requirement where the salary requirement might go up depending on what is the high income threshold right now, according to the ATO. Now, if you are not earning this amount, but you're a highly talented person, you can still apply. So you need to show that how you qualify. Like let's say specifically people who are internationally, people who are in countries where the salary rates are very low because of the exchange rates or economic differences in the countries. Now, if you are earning, let's say, a significant amount there, but that doesn't come to a total amount of 150,600 AUD, then you can still qualify, but you need to show that how your position or your role that you're working in overseas generally gets paid 153,600 in Australia. So if you were to work in Australia, you would have got this salary or more than this salary. Or also, if you're working in Australia but not getting that much salary, let's say you're 100 at 140, then also you can still qualify. So what you need to do is demonstrate that how you can reach this salary in maybe upcoming 1 year or 2 years time, or how do you think you will go above this limit? Now, what we generally do is we ask the clients to use the job offers that they get. Let's say they can start applying for the jobs. If they get a job offer, but then because of not having a permanent residency, they are not able to get that role, but they have cracked the interviews and the role was for 153,600 or more. That means we can show that, see, I got an interview call, I got an interview invitation, I went through the interviews. The only reason that I was not selected is because I didn't have the permanent visa, because a lot of companies have the requirement that the person applying for the role must have the permanent residency or a citizenship in Australia. So if they are not a permanent resident or citizen, generally the government does not approve the nomination. Sorry, the employee companies does not really hire people. Um, so in this case, if you don't have the salary, but you can justify that you can earn this much salary, it's completely fine. Now, also people who are completing PhD and they're not working in their field, they can also show that people with similar profile can earn 153,600. So they can take the advertisements from online records, or they can, look at the other people who have graduated previously from the same university or same, working in the similar area with similar profiles. So I would generally try and identify somebody who is similar to your profile, and then let's say through LinkedIn or through other channels, and show that, see, this kind of people are getting this much salary, so I can also earn that much. Or also you can pick up the advertisements online and say that, see, this job requires this much skills, and I have all these skills, and therefore I qualify for, or therefore I think I can earn 153,600, and thus I can qualify for a Global Talent Independent Program. So justifying your salary is very important. Now, the next requirement is you must have a nominator. Your nominator must be an Australian citizen or a permanent resident, or it can be an organization who can endorse your achievements. Now, the person who's providing, or organization who is providing the recommendation or nominating you for this visa program, they must be also having the national reputation in the same field as yours, and they must be currently prominent. And also, as an applicant, you must be currently prominent as well. Now, what is prominency? Let's say, for example, if PhD graduates, they can use their professors or ask their professors to nominate them, because how does the professor qualify is because professor is working for a nationally reputed university as a professor, and thus the university has a national reputation, the professor also has a national reputation, and generally they would have worked on a lot of thesis, research, and everything, so the professors would be an ideal person. For certain IT occupations and fintech occupations, we have seen that Australian Computer Society, ACS, is also nominating applicants who are falling under these categories. So if you don't have a nominator who is an Australian citizen or a permanent resident, or if you don't have a nominator which is an Australian organization, but you still want to apply and you are falling in IT or fintech, then Australian Computer Society can help you. Also, let's say if you have an employer you're working for and your employer is happy to nominate you for this program, then they can also provide a nomination. Now, generally, the nominator, whoever is the nominator, either a company or a person, must have a national reputation. So the company has to have a national reputation. Doesn't mean that the company has to be a national company and they have to have the branches all over Australia. They should have, clients in Australia. They should be working in Australia, operating in Australia lawfully. These are the things we need to provide. Also, the good thing about the nomination in this visa is the nominator does not have any obligations towards the financial part of your settlement. So generally what happens is in many visas, the companies has the obligation or the individuals have an obligation to help you financially for the first 2 years of your settlement. But in this program, there is nothing. So it's easy to convince your nominator that nominate me because I'm not a liability to you at all because you have no obligation to me or for my financials or for my settlement after I get the visa. Now, moving forward, how do we launch these applications? So this application work in 2 stages. So stage 1, where you gather all your documents. Excuse me. So you gather all your documents like your passport, your qualification documents, your achievements, and provide all the certificates and achievements that you have. Provide all the supporting documents of your achievements that you mentioned in your statement. Obviously, try and provide as much as possible. Even I would write down each and every project that I've worked internationally, if I have worked on the projects as well. If you're a PhD graduate, I would say include all your seminars you've participated in, any research you've participated in, any activities that you've done during your PhD as well. I would include each and every part of it. So in the global talent contact form, and lodge an EOI through the global talent contact form. Now, once you lodge it, then you have to wait. Now, the waiting could be depending on the industry. The waiting time does vary. So some industries do get applications faster. So some industries really get an invitation faster than the others. If your industry has a competition, that means there will be a longer waiting period. Now, after you lodge an EOI and after the case officer assesses your application, you hear the response from them. The response would be either they have invited you to apply for the visa, which is 858 visa, or they've said that, okay, you don't qualify because we believe that you do not meet the talent requirement or you do not meet the income requirement, whatever reasons. Excuse me. Once you receive, so if you get an invitation, you receive an invitation to apply for the 858. And if you don't get it, obviously you can still wait, maybe improvise your profile, and then later on you can still apply again in future. This is not a visa rejection, so it does not have any bad implication on your future applications as well. So this is not a refusal at all. It's just they're inviting you or not inviting you. Excuse me. Now, if you receive an invite, then you receive a unique identifier number as well as the code. With that identifier number, you can apply for a global talent visa subclass 858. Now, when you apply for 858 visa, again, you have to provide all the documents that you submit in the EOI stage, but also you have to provide police checks, medical examinations, and other things. Like, let's say Form 80, you have to provide police checks for all the countries. If you have a partner, you have to also provide an evidence of your relationship with your partner. If you have kids, you have to also provide your kids' documents and everything. So basically, you have to provide all the documents around this, that generally requires for any permanent visa, apart from the global talent skills that you have to prove. Now, the processing time, as I mentioned earlier, with the EOI, it can take 6 to 8 months. With visa application, also it takes up to 6 to 8 months. But generally, as I said, this varies depending on the industry. So generally, let's say, for example, if I've seen manufacturing industries, because they have less applicants, they generally get an outcome in 1 or 2 months time. But in ICT industry, generally people get it in longer time because the waiting period is longer because there are more applicants in the pool. With the 858 visa, we have mentioned that the processing time is up to 6 to 8 months. But most of the cases we have seen that visas are granted in 1 or 3 months time. Now we can pick up some bits of cases as well, how how our clients have got successful. I will share some case studies with you now after we finish this slides. So now the summary of this visa is that it's a fast track PR pathway to Australia. It gives you a great opportunity for people who are specifically highly skilled. Now in the new financial year 2021-22, so starting from tomorrow onwards, the allocations are 11,000, which is a really good number, because even I think in the last financial year, the department is not able to meet their financial allocations that they had in this current financial year. So I'm sure that 11,000 is good enough for the people, and that's about it for for my slide. But I would want to add some case studies in it. Also, I would like to add some other options that, as I mentioned earlier, that if you do not fall in this, in this sections, let's say if you're not from any of these sectors, right? What do you do? Like, let's say for example, a football player or a tennis player or a cricketer, how do they apply? Obviously, or let's say somebody from overseas who has a PhD, but they don't fall under any of these categories. How do they apply? They can directly apply for a global talent visa. Now, what they need to do is, when you go for a direct global talent visa, there are, I think, almost 200 allocations for that separately. But what happens is, if you go for the direct visa, then you have to have a very high talent. You have to be super talented person compared to even a global talent program. So somebody, let's say, for example, an international, football player or tennis player or volleyball player or basketball player or cricketer, anybody can apply who has an international reputation. Now, if you do have an international reputation and you have played internationally, you've won awards, people have, let's say I had a client who participated in international games as a bodybuilder and boxing. There was another client as well who was a boxing player. So what we did is, obviously we directly applied for the global talent program, right? The reason is because that person had played internationally in the games. Let's say you participated in Olympic games, you have won a bronze as well, is fine, or gold or silver, doesn't matter. You won the international competitions. That's good enough, because if you won like Asia Cup or Olympic games, anything like this, or any other games as well is fine. So as long as you've won an awards internationally and nationally in your country as well, all these things counts towards your achievements. And then we need to show that how. So obviously, like for example, let's say if you are from academia or professional in industry where you have high achieved maybe exceptional career growth in your sector, but your sector is not there. Let's say maybe somebody who has invented a patent, right, but their sector is not there, then they can also apply for the global talent program in this category. Maybe players, how do they show that they can earn? Like somebody has got a patent, they can easily show that they can earn 153,600 in Australia through their patent, right? But people who are, let's say, players, they can show that, see, I will have promotions, I will have, like, I will participate in TV shows, or they do get paid for their active participation in advertisement programs and different activities that they do apart from playing. So those avenues that they use to make money as well, that can be counted towards. Even musicians can apply, for example. If you're a musician and you're earning already a good amount, let's say you have a YouTube channel and you have followers internationally, then also you can apply. Again, what you need to do is you need to show that you can earn 153,600 by your profession. So if you're a musician, if you're, let's say, YouTube is paying you, Instagram is paying you for, because people are following you and you're getting paid from those activities as well. And obviously, if you come to Australia and if you're going to work, or if you're going to do activities, how are you going to generate money? You can show all those plans and then also apply, right? Now, let me share some case studies with you. Before I share these case studies, I would also like to request everyone who is attending this session to leave a review at the end of the session on the link provided. We will also text the link in the chat box soon. Now, regarding the case studies, so how it works is, in the case studies, let's say we have cases where our clients who had applied for from different sectors, have been successful. So I'm going to just start picking up one by one, and then also I'll come back to your questions too, or I can pick up one or two questions now, and then I can start sharing the these case studies. So I'll probably want to take more questions because I don't want to leave anybody without having the answer. So if there are no questions left, we will go for case studies. I have experience. So Irasima is asking a question that I have an experience in aerospectical manufacturing and in health manufacturing companies. Which sector should I apply, manufacturing or health? Now, Irasima, so it depends on which sector you worked more on. So let's say if you worked, so generally, if you fall under two sectors, I would see which sector that you have worked in is more relevant. And let's say, for example, you have worked on health sector more than the aerospace spatial manufacturing, then I'll select the health sector. But again, if you have done the manufacturing only in both the sectors, then manufacturing is the category that you want to select, because even if you were in aerospatial manufacturing or health manufacturing, but you were in the manufacturing sector, then you were not actually in health. You are not, I'm sure that you're working towards the, improvising. You're not working in identifying new technologies, but you're working more towards the manufacturing side. So if you're working more towards the manufacturing side, because in different industry, now today you're working in aerospatial, tomorrow you're working in health, tomorrow maybe the day after you're working in mechanical or anything else as well, is completely fine, because at the end you are in the manufacturing field. So that's how I would plan that I'm in a manufacturing sector, or where do I say? And but yes, where you fall major, where what is your major sector? Depending on that, I would select. Now, as you said, yes, you're in supply chain manager in medical health manufacturing. So you're a supply chain manager. So you're not actually designing or medical equipments or anything. You're not enhancing the technology, but you're working towards the manufacturing side of it. Right. So then I would say, yes, you will fall under the manufacturing sector. Now let's take the next question from
Vaibhav, there's a question from Vindhya. They're asking, other than GTI, what are the other specific PR pathways specific for PhD holders from Victorian universities?
So that would probably take another question, because if you are from if you are a PhD graduate and you're not falling under the Global Talent Program, then we did have the state nomination programs, and we do have question answer sessions in the evening as well. But I'll cover this question in this session. But you can also qualify for a Victorian state nomination program if you are able to get a skills assessment in any nominated occupation from the skills occupation list, right? And then Victoria can nominate you for the 190 or 491. Now, Victoria has a specific program. Generally, they do have a specific or a prioritized programs for people who have completed a PhD from Victorian University. So certainly you will have other options to qualify for a skill visa. And definitely you can apply through the skill visa program as well if there is no option for you to apply under the Global Talent Program.
There's another question from Irasima. Can the nominator be an Australian association?
The nominator can be an Australian association as long as they have a national reputation in the same industry. So as I mentioned again before, Irasima, that during my presentation, that the nominator, whoever is your nominator, either is a company or Australian organization or an individual who is an Australian citizen or PR, they both have to prove that they have the national reputation in the same industry. As long as they have the national reputation, there is no problem, right? But they have to be prominent in the same industry. But let's say if there is an Australian association, but it has nothing to do with manufacturing. I guess your field is manufacturing. So let's say if it has nothing to do with the manufacturing, then I would say they won't qualify as a nominator. But your company can, because you're working in a manufacturing company, and they can. Right? It's a supply chain Australian association, as you mentioned. So if it is a supply chain association, I would say I would rather look for a manufacturing company or an individual from the manufacturing domain, because those people will be a right candidate to nominate.
There's a question from Sobik. Hi, I've applied 189 from offshore as a single. My fiance is in Sydney applying 485 TR. My occupation is cartographer under PMSOL. In GTI eligibility, there is no specific job code. Cartography application is usable in defense, space, IT, environment, etc. Do I need to get offer letter first from any Australian employer? Then only I'm eligible to apply?
So you can still apply for the Global Talent Program if you can show that you have an international, as you mentioned that you're a cartographer, and this tech, your occupation is applied in different sectors like space, defense, IT, environmental. So I guess generally more of it is applied in environmental and especially mining and mining technologies, right? So yes, you can, but you don't have to have a job offer. But you have to show that how you are going to earn this money and how you are going to prove that you are a highly talented person. These are the two questions that you have to ask yourself. That are you a highly talented person? Can you prove that? Yes, then yes, you can fall under that category. Right. So, and also if you don't have a job offer, that's completely fine. If you do, it's a really good thing. You can apply from offshore itself and apply for a job roles, and whatever response you get, you can use it in your application as well. So let's say if I apply and they say that, okay, I'm offshore and that's why you're offshore and that's why we are not going to hire you. That's completely fine. We can use that email or a rejection from Australian company saying that, see, the reason that I'm not selected or I'm not able to proceed further is because I'm not in Australia. That's the only reason that I'm not selected. It's not that they have not questioned my skills, but they have questioned my location, or they have questioned something else. So we use these replies that you get. Let's say maybe they might say that, okay, you're not a PR. That's why we're rejecting you. So those are the reasons that they might give you, and then I will use these reasons as a part of my in my submission to justify that how do I qualify for this kind of roles. And the only reason that I'm not able to get this job, or I'm not able to get this, this salary, is because I'm not onshore. I'm not probably a permanent resident or a citizen. That's why I'm not getting this. So I will probably, as I said, I will use different reasonings depending on my circumstances. As I said, each case is different and each case can be dealt in a different way.
There's a question from Roopdeep Kaur. What about the candidate who are in the first year of PhD and has international publication, gold medalist during graduation and scholarships, and working as a part-time tutor at university in Victoria? What are the options for getting PR?
I guess, Roopdeep, you will not qualify under the Global Talent Program. The reason is because, see, you have to show that either you're highly talented professional working in the senior level, or you can show that you have completed the PhD. Now, if you don't have either one, then you either wait for your PhD to complete and go for a Global Talent Program, or you can go for a skills assessment in different occupation again. Let's say if you worked in IT and if your PhD is in IT and if you have worked in IT for at least 20 hours per week for 2 years, you can get your skills assessment. And as I mentioned earlier, Victoria does nominate candidates who have completed PhD in Victoria. So eventually you will qualify. But during the PhD, it's very hard to tell you right now because we have to look at overall scenario or overall case as well, that what skills you have, what degree you have completed, how many years of experience you have, whether you have an English language score, what's your English language score, whether you passed the CCL test or not. All these factors, your partner, what about your partners? And then based on that, you can apply for the state nomination. Now, I think you mentioned that you have a skills assessment as a telecommunication engineer and you have 85 points. Then yes, say, again, Victoria state nomination criteria says that you have to work minimum 20 hours per week in your nominated occupation. Now, what I would do if I were you, that I work at least 20 hours with the university as a lecturer or university tutor in telecommunication field, teaching the students who are studying telecommunication. And then I'll get a reference letter from my university saying that I am teaching students who are studying telecommunication engineering. So technically I'm using, so the idea that I'm going to apply here is that whatever skills I have, I'm using those skills at my workplace, right? So, and the requirement is that you have to work 6 months in Victoria to qualify for a nomination from Victoria. Now, obviously, Victoria is closed at the moment, and they will re-announce their criteria from, I think, after July, 1st of July. So, and then once they announce, you can see where do you fall in, and then you can apply. But I'm sure that you don't have the 6 months. If you don't have 6 months in Victoria right now, part-time at least 20 hours per week, then you should start working towards that part for now. And by the time you complete the 6 months, I'm sure Victoria would have announced their criteria. And generally, their last criteria was that you work 6 months in your nominated occupation. Now, working in as a teacher is your question is that working as a teacher, does it qualify for work? Yes, as I said, I would justify to Victorian government that I am using my skills of telecommunication to train other people. That's my job. So let's say if I become a software engineer, for example, in IT, and I have two choices now, or maybe I have few choices. I can start my one, I can develop an app and then have my own business running in. I can go and work for some company where I just write programming codes and just keep doing that job. Or I go and work as at a university because I have already learned how the software engineering works, and I'm going to teach other students. So everywhere what I'm using is my skills that I've gained during my studies, and I'm applying those skills at my workplace now in different manners, right? So let's say, for example, accountant who has worked as an accountant, or maybe a cook who studied cooking. Now, if they go and work in an Italian restaurant, they'll cook Italian food. If they go and work in, let's say factories, they might really just do a predefined cooking, or let's say pre-processed cooking. So, or if they go and work in Indian restaurant, they will probably just do an Indian food cooking. So, but what they're doing is they're using people work in let's say childcare or aged care, as well as in aged care, especially in hospitals as well, as a cook, because what they do is they utilize their skills of cooking in their job. Now, different people go in different domains, but they just use the same skills. The same way you're doing the same thing in this place. You're using your telecommunication skills to teach other telecommunication engineering, and this is how I will justify. Yes, it is a bit complex to justify, but it's not impossible. Yes, Agam, you can take the next question.
So the next question is from Tanmay. I'm currently pursuing my PhD in artificial intelligence at Curtin University, Western Australia, with university tuition-free scholarship. Before joining as research scholar at Curtin, I served as an expatriate lecturer for 9 years in one prestigious university in Bhutan. I have 5 international paper publications, as well as I attended many international conferences. Last year, while doing my PhD, I got one summer internship project on AI for 3 months and successfully completed that. I have completed 1 year, 6 months in my research program and will work another 18 months to complete my PhD. Am I eligible for GTI, and what is the possibility of getting PR?
You will qualify for a GTI, Tanmay, but then I would suggest that you wait for at least you can apply before 6 months of your PhD completing. Now, the reason is because what's going to happen is you don't have a PhD from overseas, right? If I'm not wrong, from what you mentioned, because you're studying PhD right now. So you only have a research course. Now, before January 2021, they were accepting graduates from research as well, but now they've stopped accepting graduates from January 2021, right? So now you have to wait for your PhD to complete, because you're not working in your nominated occupation right now, and in the or you're not working in the sector that you're nominating. So you have to wait for your PhD to complete, or before once you complete a thesis and even your PhD is, let's say, 6 months away from completion, you can apply. So if you're going to complete PhD in the next 6 months, you can still apply. So what I would do is generally wait till the end, close to the last 6 months of my PhD, and then apply. So then you have a better chances of applying. But yes, as Roop asked the question as well, I've just seen the message from her as well, that the question is that, can I apply for multiple EOI for global talent? Yes, you can apply for multiple EOIs for global talent. So you can apply right now as well if you want to give it a shot. But I believe that your chances would be higher after you complete a PhD or when you're about to complete a PhD.
So the next question is from Deepak Desai. I and my wife, we both are in Master in Dairy Technologies, interested to apply for GTI. My wife, having 2 publications in the international journal, she received 2 gold medals while MTech. Now working in the food industry, also NATI qualified. Any chance to get GTI?
And sorry, I'm just looking at the question whether they are earning the amount or not. So if you are earning 153,600, then yes, definitely you can still qualify because you have a gold medals, and you have also mentioned that you have worked internationally, isn't it?
There is another message. He said that worked as a university lecturer, but qualification degree is in food, PhD, in which we can apply education or food or agriculture.
It really depends on how, whether you fall under the food or agriculture, depending on whether, your skills that you have. Now, let me see the industries that I would say in your case is maybe agri-food if you are working in the agri-food sector, or if your PhD or thesis were related to agri-food at all, where you um, worked on, let's say, um, you know, crop farming, or how you work on enhancing the crops, then, or maybe let's say irrigation system, all those things also will count, right? So, but if you're not earning 153,600, but your how much you're earning then? If you're not 153,600, are you earning less than that? But let's say you are in 100K mark, right? So if you're earning above 100K, then you can still qualify because you're already earning 100K, for example, 100,000K, and you can justify that. How do you qualify for uh, to earn more money? Then definitely you can use that skills, or you can use that explanation to apply for the global talent. So if you're not earning 153,000, that's fine. But how much you're earning, that will matter again. Now, as I said, global talent is not a black and white tick box visa where you simply tick the boxes and then you qualify. Here, you have to sell yourself to a case officer or assessor who is assessing your case. So you have to justify that how do you qualify and how do you fall in this particular sector, right? So if you say that, okay, I'm the highly talented person, you have to show that how you are a highly talented person, right? So you need to justify your skills. Now, you mentioned that your jobs are available for 120K. Yeah, so as I said, if you're not in Australia right now, and if you're earning overseas and you're working overseas, then you can definitely apply. But then you need to make sure that you provide enough explanation that showing that how will you, how do you have how will you prove your talent first thing, right? And how will you prove that you will be able to earn 153,600 in Australia, right? So as I said, pick up the job advertisements and show those things as well as an evidence. With talent part, you have to show all the projects, gold medals, everything that you've gone. If you worked internationally with some, overseas, organizations as well, or if you worked internationally as well, you can count every single part of your activities that you've done in your career. Use those particulars to qualify or to justify your skills. Now, what you need to do is, as I said, sell yourself to a case officer, right? Now, selling yourself to a case officer is the toughest part here. And when you don't have a PhD and when you don't have the salary, it becomes a bit tough. But then, like, let's say generally, I would put in my ideas as well in my explanation that I have seen Australia is struggling, let's say, for example, in agriculture, if you fall under agriculture, I'll say that Australia is struggling with this particular part. Australia has a lot of land, but lack of irrigation technology. Now, I have a plan for irrigation technology that can change the way farming is done in Australia or improvise the way the farming is done in Australia. And I have spoken to a few farmers in Australia. Let's say you can speak to a few farmers, approach them online, and then speak to them and see, if they like your ideas that you have, and then get a letter from them saying that, yes, see, I spoke to these people, they have also liked my ideas, and I'm sure that, many more people will like my idea. So this is how I'm going to justify that I'm a highly talented person, because I can convince two people online while I'm not even in the country, right? So imagine if I arrive in Australia, what sort of, uh, enhancement that I can do for a lot of farmers in regional Australia, right? Uh, yes, Deepak, you cannot combine your wife and your income. you both have to have, like, one of you will become an independent applicant, right? So you only qualify, one person qualifies, second person is going to be as a dependent person, or let's say accompanying family member. Now, what you need to do is you just need to, yes, you can put in your explanation saying that you're getting me, but you're getting my wife as well, who is also a highly talented person. I can write those things, but they are going to assess me, not my wife, because I'm the applicant, right? The same way you need to do the same thing, that you can mention that, yes, I'm coming in. If I get an invite, you get buy one, get one free because my wife is also a highly talented person, right? But they will approve you first. And once you're approved, yes, obviously they might consider your wife's case as well as a small weightage, but it's not the complete weightage. And you can't combine both of your profiles and then say that, okay, I qualify, right? Now, the next question is from Souvik.
Yeah, Sobik has question again that I am an offshore cartographer applicant. How to show 153 plus per year earning acceptance until I get job offer from Australian employer. I apply for the job, but it's rejected because of offshore and don't have work rights. As I've applied 189 at 90 points, will they consider GTI application simultaneously? Means can both EY be eligible simultaneously? And he's also mentioned my highest qualification is MSc and published international and national journals as second, third co-author.
Yes, Souvik. So basically how it works is, number one, yes, you can have global talent program and the 189 visa program are two different things. They have no impact on each other. So if you get one, the other one doesn't get impacted at all. Like two different independent processes, right? It has nothing to do with each other. Now, the second part of your application, as you say that you got rejected because you're offshore and don't have the work rights. Now, I will use this email saying that, see, I applied for this role, which was paying 153,600 or more, but I got rejected because they haven't mentioned any other reason, right? In your rejection, they mentioned that you are offshore and you don't have work rights in Australia. That's why we're rejected. So that I would interpret it that if I had work rights and if I was in Australia, they would have hired me or they would have considered hiring me, right? So I will put in this argument, and then you can pick up advertisements like this and then have, let's say, 5 to 10 advertisements together, combine them and show that how you qualify for each of these roles, right? So I'll pick up an advertisement, take the copy of that advertisement saying that, see, on this link, they have this advertisement, they are paying this much salary. Now, the requirement is, let's say you have to have 2 years of work experience, you have to have following skills, right? Knowledge of these following technologies as well. So, and then I'll say that, see, I have all this technology, as you can see from my profile, and I have this much experience. I tick all the boxes that the company has advertised for, and therefore I qualify for this role. So if I was in Australia on a permanent visa, I would have easily got this job, and this job is paying 153,600. Now I'll pick up more and more advertisements like this and put it together, right? And then apply for an EOI. I hope that answers your question, Souvik.
There's another question from Nitish. Can I submit EOIs for GTI 190 simultaneously? I think you've already answered this question.
We have already answered this question that yes, you can, because as I said, there's no implication or no impact of this one application on the other one and other ones on the first one.
There's another question from Tanmay. Last 1 year, I'm working as a casual database admin as well as casual tutor at my uni. Will my database admin role help me to get PR in GTI or other categories?
Again, see, it's a very broad question. With GTI, as I mentioned earlier, that whatever you're doing, yes, you should include, and every small bit will count in your explanation. But the most important part is that you have to justify that how talented you are. Now, I guess you say that you are going to complete PhD. You haven't completed the PhD. So if you apply right now, yes, you might be able to justify that you can earn 153,600, but you're not a highly talented person, right? So you have to show both. So if you can justify that you're a highly talented person, as well as you're earning 100 or you can earn 153,600. It's not just one part. You're only focusing on one part. You're forgetting the second one. So you have to combine all of this together and then apply for your UI. So yes, you can try, but your case is not very strong, even though you're working as a database administrator, or let's say as well as in the university. So the best way is to wait for it, because yes, you can apply and try, and if you get no for an answer, that's fine. You can reapply it in future when you complete PhD. It's your choice, but I would say, only give it a shot if you think that you can tick all the boxes. Right? If you don't think you can tick all the boxes, I wouldn't give it a shot, and I'll wait for the other boxes to get ticked. So do we have any questions, Agam?
Yeah, there's one more question from Timnit. I'm in Australia and got my master in research from Australia University. Will I be eligible for this?
Sorry, what is the question?
I'm in Australia and got my master's in research from Australia University. Will I be eligible for this?
No, only research. As I mentioned that before January, they were accepting research graduates, but now they don't, right? So the research, applicants, masters by research graduates were qualified before pre-January 2021, and we have got clients who have got an invite as well. But after January, when they changed the criteria and the legislation was updated, there is no invite after that for the graduates who have completed masters by research. Even you applied before January, but you got an answer after January, they would have got rejection as well.
I think that's it for now. We have basically covered all questions.
Okay. So I'm just going to cover a couple of case studies so that you understand how things works and how you can improvise your case as well. So I'll pick up one client that was working as a dentist or orthodontist, and was also obviously had completed masters by research. Right now, this candidate had applied before January 2021, so that's why with research he could qualify. So he ticked one box that he had a research degree. Second one, he was earning 153,600 because he had his own practice, dental practice. He was a registered dentist in Australia. That ticks the second box as well. Now the third box is the how do you prove that he was talented? Now he was participating in a lot of research. So while working as a dentist, he was also speaking to universities and different labs around the world and participating in research of how they can enhance the technology in orthodontist field or dentistry field to help all the professionals in improvising their treatment practices, right? So we justify that, see, he was invited by University in New Zealand, University in Singapore. He had done the speeches there, and all the orthodontists were working, who were working as a dentist or orthodontist, actually participated in this event and heard him. So what we did is we justified that, see, this candidate qualified. This is how he's making an impact on the broader community by sharing his knowledge, sharing his ideas. Right. Then he was invited by a lab in Japan to come and participate in a research program where they were, were developing a technology where it could help dentist professionals, or let's say orthodontist professionals, in treating the patients better. So this is how we justify that he was falling under the medical technology and he was a highly talented person because he had worked on different projects around the world. We provided the photos as well, certificate of attendance, invitation letters, emails, everything. So as I mentioned earlier as well, that you should try and provide every single part of your case, even the smallest part. Like I'll share another case study, a couple of case studies, so that you can understand how we justify. Now we had a client who was in Singapore working in a big bank in fintech industry. Now what we did is we had to justify that he has a nominator. Now he was finding it very hard to find a nominator in Australia. So what we did is we went to Australian Computer Society saying that, okay, can you be a nominator for him? Here are his achievements and skills and documents, provided his work experience for 15 years or so, and provided all the projects that he had worked on, and ACS, Australian Computer Society, agreed to nominate him, right? So nominator part was very fine. Now, technologies, as I mentioned earlier as well in my presentation, that my client worked on different technologies, and what we justified is that all the banks around the world use one of these two technologies, and this person is actually working on both of this technology and is aware about both of this technology. That means he can go and work for any bank in the world, right? So this justifies that he he has skills which not everyone has, right? So then he proved his talent. And then we also showed that he worked in different banks around the world, where he worked on different projects and helped the banks in enhancing their services, and then obviously, how they can enhance their products as well. All those technologies that he used and made it so much automated that the things worked really well for the banks. And then we provided the details of those projects as well. So this is how we justified in the fintech industry. Now there is another client who was working for a very good example. Obviously, I cannot name the company for a privacy reason, but it is a big company which produces chocolates, and I'm sure that everyone would have got those chocolates, and you must have had those chocolates in your lifetime once at least. That company has a production in Australia, and this person was working as a head of the production, and this company provides and supplies chocolates around Australian Asia Pacific region, the entire region, and all the manufacturing world done under his control. So he was actually the head of the manufacturing unit, and where they're providing to a larger area around the world. Let's say Asia Pacific is a quite huge area when you talk about the geographical area. So this person worked as a head of this manufacturing unit. So we justified that yes, our client is is in the manufacturing. He is working for an internationally reputed company, and therefore he qualifies to be for a GTI program. Also, he was earning more than 153,600, so that easily justified. There are many more cases like this. Now there was a big bank where our client was working. This is really good example as well, that that our client was working in the bank in anti-money laundering, and obviously his job was to he was a vice president in the bank basically. So, and he was actually working as a vice president, but his job was to also analyze the anti-money laundering activities, and use the database analysis skills. So he was actually in database analysis that falls under ICT, as well as mix of fintech and ICT, because he had to use his financial knowledge as well as technical knowledge and analyze the transactions that are happening and identify the transactions which are related to money laundering. Now, this candidate was already in Australia, so it was very easy. We had similar case where the applicant was from overseas, and that person also qualified the same way, and his job title was exact same thing in the same bank, where he was working as an vice president for the company in the bank, and similar profile where they were working on anti-money laundering. The salary overseas was not according to Australia's salary rates. So what we did is, because that person was working overseas in India, where the salary and obviously the salary is less, but the expenses are also less. So what we said is, these economic differences are there between Australia and India. So somebody working in India might be, let's say, earning 50 million rupees, but that's not equal to $150,000 in Australia. So, but this amount is significant in that particular country. And if that person comes with the same skill sets into Australia, this person will be able to get this much salary and maybe that this person will be able to attract 153,600. So this is how we justified, and that person also got a nomination. Right now, that's the last question that I can take. Now we are about to finish our session. So the question is one more thing for GTI. Does the case officer give tasks to complete, like interview task or anything like that? No, so they do not give you any task. You just have to submit your application with your explanation. There is nothing at all that they will come back to you with the questions if they have questions about your documentation. But otherwise, onus is on you to justify how you qualify for this program. As I said, it's the discretionary part. The case officer decides whether you qualify or not. So make sure that when you provide your submission, include every single part in your submission. So this way you can justify that how you qualify for this program. Over to you, Agam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vaibhav. Thank you to our viewers for attending the session. Don't forget to leave your review for the session. The link has been shared in the chat box. Your feedback is much appreciated. Also, don't miss out on our next sessions. Join straight away through the links in the chat box. Thanks again for joining us today. Have a great evening ahead.